walk me through that. So you started using LinkedIn, and it was as a recruitment tool. Walk me through that process. How did it go from a recruitment tool to something else? Russell? I lost Russell as well, yeah? Yeah, that's quite funny. Here we go. That's done all. It really, very seldom this happens, yeah? Excellent, there we go.
So the bullet from the grassy knoll got me.
No, it did me as well, yeah, right? We both dropped out at the same time. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so let's start again. So LinkedIn was a recruitment tool for you, and then you converted across at some point. When did you start to realize it was more than a recruitment tool?
I think when I started to use it, I think it's that moment when you start going to meetings, and before you go to the meeting, the first thing you do is to check someone on LinkedIn. So I think it's at that point you start to realize the added value of the tool. I then also started to transition over from my news feed being more and more LinkedIn. I found that products like Facebook or Twitter were useful, but they seemed to attract quite a lot of negativity, whereas I found there was value in the articles I was reading on LinkedIn. So I became a more frequent user of it, but completely untrained, completely unskilled, not quite sure what to do. There was one day I uploaded my Gmail connections and it automatically sent a connection request to them all. And then I got banned for having connected with too many people. So you kind of go through those experiences. Oh, just a quick hint, actually. If you contravene a LinkedIn rule, for example, their call center is very good. And if you contact them through email and explain the fact that and try to be as charming as possible and about how you're just an old guy that's made a mistake, they tend to reinstate you very quickly.
Okay, that's good, right? Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, it's not happened so far. And so what's the? I mean, so you navigated through that process, and you started to put content out there, and you started to do things. I mean, how long ago was that? And where did that evolve into something else?
Well, I was playing it until about 6 years ago. We then sat down as part of my advisory business, Exalta Capital Partners, and we were looking at how to use social media better to actually promote the business, because it seemed like quite a sensible thing to do. So we went to tender and met with a couple of social media companies. And the feedback from the social media companies was good. We'll charge you £500 or £5,000 a month, and we'll do this and we'll do these actions. And my question was always, but what's my return going to be? And the explanation was, well, it's marketing. You'll promote your brand and hopefully it'll attract things, but we can't commit to you actually winning new business or something. So I kind of thought that, well, this seemed like quite a bit of a risk, and maybe we could sort of do it ourselves. So what we noticed about a lot of the advice around social media at the time, it was all the same. So everyone said you should post on a Tuesday and Thursday at 5 o'clock, or you should post at 7:30 on a Wednesday, and you should, whenever you send a connection request, you should put like a couple of paragraphs who you are as an introduction. And it didn't seem very scientific. It all seemed sort of someone's had an idea. So what we did was we started a straightforward approach that you would do in marketing. So we built a process around about it and measured the results. So I started posting about 4.5 years ago, every single day on LinkedIn, one post, and then we'd measure what kind of interaction that got. And what I was really doing was teasing out the people that followed me on LinkedIn, what was their interest. So we started to share stuff that was interesting content.
Who's speaking?
Guys, can I get you to mute your microphones?
Who's speaking, please?
Let me just mute. There we go. That's it done. Okay.
Thank you, Fraser.
That's interesting. So you actually started posting content on a regular basis,
yes,
and seeing what happened with that 6 years ago.
Yes.
And how did that unfold? What started to happen then?
Well, that was interesting, and the fact that it started to develop more interesting conversations, and you started to understand your market more. But there was a moment when everything changed, and I was working with a young entrepreneur in Edinburgh, Bruce Walker, and then Bruce had persuaded me to help him to put on a conference in Edinburgh for a lot of young entrepreneurs. It was a huge success. And we decided between us that we would do it again, but this time we'd do it in San Francisco, because that would be, there's a lot of technology people. This would be a great thing to do. He'd never been to America. This would be a fantastic thing. So we decided to put on a conference in San Francisco. And if you're going to put on a conference in San Francisco, you want the tech companies involved. So we reached out to Apple and Google and Microsoft. But the way we did that was we wrote through LinkedIn to their chief exec. So we ended up writing to Tim Cook at Apple and explaining in a message, dear Tim, we think Apple is one of the greatest brands in the world, and we think you are one of the best chief execs. Everyone in Scotland loves Apple. We're coming to San Francisco. It'd be fantastic if you could come and speak at our conference. And the message we got back, and this is all about how you can contact anyone now with the right message. We got a response back from Tim Cook. Now, it wasn't from, I'm not silly, I don't think it was from Tim Cook himself. I'm sure he has a department for dealing with these kind of things. And the message back said, I wish you every success with your conference. But the second paragraph in the message changed my life. The second paragraph said, we have another British guy working here at Apple called Jonathan Ives. I forwarded on your email to him, your message to him. And suddenly, within a couple of hours, I've got Sir Johnny Ives, exec assistant, on the phone to me, having a conversation along the lines of, who the beep are you? I've just been told by the chief exec at Apple to phone you. And suddenly you realize that this connectivity was a real thing. You could go and approach anyone. And LinkedIn was the tool that allowed you to do it. And it's kind of grown since then. And I think the challenge a lot of people have with LinkedIn is there's a need to feel that you have permission to contact someone you don't know. Mm-hmm. No, if you don't know me, you can send me a connection request. I'll make a decision on whether or not to respond.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can hear everything. I think everybody else can hear Malcolm, yeah? So I think most people can hear the audio, yeah? So it might be something to do with your side. So Russell, that's really interesting. Yeah? So basically what you're saying is the epiphany. I was going to actually ask you, I've got a question here. What was your epiphany? So the epiphany for you is actually you can reach out to anybody you want.
Yes. So I did a phone call last week to do with the Scottish space sector. That phone call was generated because I'd reposted up an article about the Scottish space sector, and a couple of people contacted me. We're now going to have an event about the Scottish space sector, and I've been told that you also want the European Space Agency and NASA involved. So I've reached out to people at NASA and at the European Space Agency directly through LinkedIn. My connection request has been accepted, and I'm going to approach them to speak at the conference.
It's quite incredible, isn't it, really? All right, when you grab your headline, I mean, we're just like, absolutely. You know, we're not like, you know, yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah? So talking about this, where do you think people go wrong with LinkedIn? I mean, you say people don't want to connect. Where does it go wrong for most people?
I don't think it's wrong. I think it's just possibly not taking the maximum advantage that the tool delivers. I think one of the things we've got is that LinkedIn is a technology product with a very strong roadmap that's continually developing and changing. Mm-hmm. So there's new features coming along, and the way technology works today, the new features don't come along and there's like a press release and then we go in the user guide. They're just naturally introduced. And I think it's up to us to spot those and how to use them. The other thing I would do is you've got to have a regime. You've got to be able to build a process that you follow regimentedly, like any marketing effort. It's regimented. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. So there's an actual process to follow. Just to give an example of a new feature on LinkedIn, Kendra Byers is one of the members at Scottish Business Network, had mentioned to me that LinkedIn now has an events feature. So we tried out the events feature, which is basically you go in, set up the event, and then you can just click on people to invite them to the event. So we did that last week, and most of the people on this call came through that route. But what we also discovered was people accept the LinkedIn message to come to the event, but we've still got to send them something else to say this is the Zoom details. So we did that last night. So you're continually learning.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? And it does seem to be, there seems to be this rapid evolution of the product at the moment. I mean, even you and I, and we're pretty stable on LinkedIn, are learning constantly of new things, new ways of using them. And that's too, new tools, and there's another thing called Smart Links that we're using, and then you've got this as a tool as well, and it's just changing so quickly. You know?
Can I just give a very simple example of something that happened on Wednesday? So I'm supporting a charity out of India, an amazing young lady who does supports young girls in slums in India. Now, we've done a page to collect money, and I'm doing an insane event when I'm going to run 100 kilometers to raise the money. So that's the kind of typical normal stuff you would do. But I posted on LinkedIn that I'm doing this. I then tagged in the post everybody I could think of or I was connected with who was in India. One of the persons came back and said, "Oh, hi, Russell. I run the Connected India magazine. I would like to feature you in the magazine." So we did that, and I got interviewed, and then I got a magazine article. And then because I've got a magazine article, I joined a number of LinkedIn groups, which are quite heavily used by the Indian community. And that article's now gone through those, and that's now the second most successful LinkedIn post I've ever made. And you just build and build and build, but you have permission to ask people. That's what's amazing.
Yeah, really, really incredible. Yeah, really interesting. So let me move on. Yeah. So how do you see LinkedIn evolving in the future?
I think the future is always very difficult. I think I don't think these platforms, in my mind, rapidly evolve. I think sensible. That's a sensible feature to have. That feature's maybe always been there. So we're not really aware of it being a radical change. So I would expect we will see, I think there'll be video interaction, because that would seem a sensible thing to do. I think we will see multi-language. So I expect that within my lifetime, you could be speaking Singaporeese and I could be speaking Gaelic, and we could be speaking to each other. So I think features like that will come in more.
Okay. Excellent.
I think we will probably see more restrictions on issues.
Yeah, and what do you mean by more restrictions? What do you think? What sort of things?
Well, over time, we see now. So LinkedIn a couple of years ago introduced a restriction on the number of connections you can have, or the number of connections you can send, or who's a first connection, who's a second connection. So these changes happen all the time, and I believe that these happen to improve the use of the product and the service. But there's no way of knowing if the LinkedIn today will be the LinkedIn tomorrow, or if some of the services that are currently free will become chargeable. So I think there's a need for everyone to move at pace as well with their adoption of it. And LinkedIn is just the one I used. Originally, I used Twitter. I've got tens of thousands of followers on Twitter because it was a way to go. But this has actually become LinkedIn. LinkedIn changed 9 months ago for me and seemed to become much more effective. And over lockdown, it's just become the go-to place.
Yeah, interesting. Let's just change the topic a little bit and just switch it into a different dynamic. There's lots of different purposes for LinkedIn, from recruitment to lead generation to building your brand to getting messages out to your teams. I mean, if you take building your personal brand, what's the secret to doing that?
I think it's kind of typical marketing things. So I think it's about understanding your market. So if I was to start talking a lot about something I don't know anything about. So if I was to start talking a lot about the education and how education should be changed, and education this and education that, it wouldn't really make sense because it's not really my brand. So if you look at the 3 key aspects of my brand, which are entrepreneurship, internationalism, and Scotland, so these are the things that people recognize me for, then it's important I continually keep on talking about those and passing comment on those. And then that makes sense to people because I'm being consistent. So I think the consistency part's really important. I think you're also looking to be doing things, you know, so doing events and talking about the events and talking about what you've learned. But the single most important thing is what I've done in, I suppose, in sales my whole life, is it's all about helping someone else. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how many hundreds of LinkedIn messages I've had to add this week, but I've responded to them all. And I've tried to help. When I was writing for the course that you and I are doing starting on July the 1st, we developed an Eventbrite page for that course. And my young son helped me, who's volunteering at the moment, and he's not done an Eventbrite page before. So he did an Eventbrite page the best he could. And then I sent a link to that Eventbrite page to 24 first connections on LinkedIn. So these were 24 people who I think of as mates. They're all in different sectors. And I asked them to tell me what they thought of the Eventbrite page. And some people came back and said, it's great. Some people came back and said, that's wrong, that's not the way you spell that word, do that. And it's 10 times better than it was because I reached out and asked for help.
Fantastic. So what you're saying is it's this usage of it, yeah, right? And understanding the subtlety of the usage and how it fits into your world and staying consistent with that. Is that what you're saying?
It's really interesting. I think it's much more personable than people understand. So if I met Fraser, for example, at an event, I would go, hello, I would say, hi, Fraser. I wouldn't say, dear Fraser, it's good to see you, regards, Russell. And it's trying to think about it that way. Every single person who has a first connection with me, I think of in my head as being a mate. Mm-hmm. So that's how I talk to them, they're a mate. I may not have spoken to them for several years. I may not remember who they are or why we spoke in the first place, but I'd speak to them as though they were a friend.
Yeah, and I think there's another level of how you take it. I learned something from you the other day. You said a statement when we were doing a session, which was that when you talk to people, you assume what they're saying to you is good. You assume they're being nice to you.
I assume one of the challenges I find is if we talk verbally and you say, Russell, you're daft. Now, if you say, Russell, you're daft, right, you'll probably smile a little bit and I'll go, Fraser, you're just being silly, right? But if you say, Russell, you're daft in writing, and I don't know you very well, I don't really know what you're saying here. So in writing, Russell, you're daft, that may mean you're being really aggressive towards me, I don't know. So I took a decision many, many years ago that every single thing that I receive in writing, that the person is writing it with goodwill in their heart.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, that's really interesting.
So they're coming from a positive perspective and they're going, dear Russell, and you are completely wrong. But I imagine that they're doing that from the goodness of their heart. Yeah,
no, I like it. And I think that's a really, really important point. And look, I'm going to finish there. Let's open this up to questions. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, it's really useful for me. Every time I do this with Russell and I see what he's doing, what I'd love to do is get everybody to switch their videos on. And then let's just keep your mics muted, but if you've got questions, ask questions, and then I'll wrap up at the end. So pop your video on, that'd be great. Hope you don't mind being famous being video, right? So we'll get that out there. But yeah, so questions.
Russell, hi, it's Andy here.
Good morning, Aberdeen.
It's beautifully sunny in Aberdeen, thank you. Yes, weather's good. Yeah, it's must be at least 10 degrees. So it's just a quick question around, you talk about, the usefulness of LinkedIn compared to Facebook and so on. Do you think that over the course of possibly, I've noticed possibly over the last 18 months or so, that there's been far more people have been, if you like, sort of almost policing LinkedIn and saying, no, this is a comment or this is a subject for Facebook, and actually trying to keep the two defined? Or do you think that there is a merging of the social media together?
It's a great question, behave differently. But if I'm connected with someone and they share something which I think is inappropriate, or they share something where I think, why are you saying that? I can just click a button and disconnect from them and I'll never see them again. Or I can click a button and block them and I'll never see anything they write. So I'm quite wary of that. So I'm quite careful with an understanding that if I said, I think everyone should vote for the Raving Monster Looney Party, a lot of people might go, oh, I don't agree with Russell. And they might go switch off. And that switch off's forever. And it's quite interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I don't see people, personally, I don't see people doing that.
But if I look at some of the people, sorry, go on.
But I think there's an unwritten code that people don't do that, because it's very seldom I see anybody posting something to do with family and things like that, or that's inappropriate. It's very unusual, So I think people know not to do that. Yeah, they used to say.
to be fair, it could be, you know, sort of, I guess some of the community you're involved in, obviously through work and so on, some of the community I'm involved with all due respect, is very much offshore workforce. You know, and they have a certain style, a certain language, a certain community that they continue to utilize regardless of whatever media it's on. You know, that they treat it very consistently. So it was just to see if that was, you know, a case elsewhere, or if it's potentially one sector or a number of sectors that works with.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. It's interesting. We don't see it very often as a problem, Russell. I don't see that much people posting, and I think they learn quickly, or they just do it once. Look, I've got another question here from David. Not from David, sorry. From Luke. Could you tell us about the tests on different content posts and your finding from these?
Could you tell us about some of the tests? So what I will do is I will post an article and then measure the interaction, because you get all the data back. So you get the number of views and the number of likes and the number of comments. And then I might post a similar article at a different time, or post a similar article in a different way. So one thing I did recently was I started to use hashtags in a different way. So we've got a great guy at Scottish Business Network based out of Chicago, Andy, who's like one of the leading experts on LinkedIn. And he wrote a brilliant post, which was the 100 top hashtags in the world on LinkedIn. So I posted one article with the top 3 LinkedIn hashtags to one group. And then to the next group, I used the next 3 most popular hashtags. And it was really interesting how some hashtags brought back different types of comments and different levels of interaction. So I think that the other one is tagging people as well. So sometimes I will write something, I'll maybe tag, if I'm doing something about, and I mention something about SEO, I would tag Stephen Alexander. Or if I was doing something about recruitment, I might tag Adrian. You know, so you do that kind of thing, and people go, "Oh, that's interesting," and you've tagged on something that's got nothing to do with me, because then it just doesn't make any sense. I'll tell you this, my entire secret about social media is based on a Michael Caine film I saw once about him and his mates and owning a bar in the 70s. And it was all about sitting at the bar in the 70s. And what you would do is you would sit there and you'd read your paper. And your mates would be beside you with a pint of Foster's or a pint of Skol and their fags. And they'd be doing that. And you'd be reading your paper, and I'd turn around to Andy Brodie and I'd go, "Hey, Andy, you seen this story about West Ham?" And that to me is what social media is. I have some intuition about an interest of Andy's. I have a content platform to read, and I know if I share this with Andy, he might find that interesting. And that to me is what I think social media is. I very rarely at the present moment produce unique content, because there's such incredibly good content out there. And I just want to make sure it gets shared as broadly as possible with an audience who are interested.
Yeah, really cool. I think the tagging thing is really subtle. Understanding how to tag is a really, really important thing. There's much more to it than we're going to cover now, right? But it's a really, really useful strategy. And if you think about how difficult it is to do, you've got to have a list there of people who would you tag when you do certain things. How do you tag them? And you also don't want to be over tagging people. And there's a lot of things going on with that, right? That are more than just the simplicity of tagging, right? You know, there's a whole process behind it, I would imagine. You know.
Russell, question for you.
Yeah.
Some people say that you should post so many times a day, and some say once, twice, 3 times a week. How often do you post?
I post on LinkedIn once a day, 7 days a week. But what I will do is I'll possibly reshare content by someone else. If Fraser puts out a particular interesting piece of content, or Dave, I might reshare that, or I might comment on it. I also do something which, one of the challenges with LinkedIn is that the messaging platform isn't that great. So what I do is I have an automatic forward. So every single LinkedIn message I'm sent gets automatically forwarded to my email, where it's then stored in a folder. So I can just pop in once or twice a day and go into that folder. When I click on the message, it takes me into the message in LinkedIn. So it works because of the way my brain works. So that works much better.
Brilliant. Thanks, Russell.
Excellent. Another question here. Do you use LinkedIn Navigator? Do you use Navigator?
No, I don't. No.
No, you don't. So I'll answer the question in Navigator then. The Sales Navigator score, I don't really rate it that much. I don't think it's that important. I've sat at 83 for like years and it never changes. I suppose it's really good because they're trying to gamify it a little bit, but you know, I don't personally use it. And then the second question in Navigator is, do you use the Smart Links function? Yes, we do. I like it. I think it's a really useful tool for sharing content. Again, there's sophisticated ways to use it, and you've got to really think carefully how you go about using it, how you actually work with that, Alan.
Can I expand on that question then Fraser? Because we've just ERA's just signed us up for a 1-month trial of Sales Navigator. So there's 100 of us all running about desperately trying to work out whether or not Sales Navigator is good, how to use it, and specifically around the smart links. The first time I tried the smart links, it looked like you put a smart link up, you click on it, and you come to a window that says, Alan Burse is stalking you. Please note that if you click here, Alan Burse will know exactly what you're doing, but please click on it anyway. And I'm going, I don't know about this.
Yeah, I think the good thing about Smart Links is you can see who you've shared your content with. You just got to think what the purpose is. So we use Smart Links. I'll share a PDF with someone, or a photograph, okay, or a picture of something, or a little PowerPoint, and then I'll say, if you want more information, let me know. Then I'll share a Smart Link that gives downloadable information, and it's really, really useful. I really like it. Right? You just got to use it the right way, yeah, right, at the right time, yeah. So you've just got to be constructive with it, yeah. So it's not.
I think for me, the most important thing is to think about these are human beings. So we're interacting with human beings. So because I was holding this event this morning, I was getting interviewed by Fraser this morning. I sent out a message. I clicked on a button which sent 40 of you all an invite. So that was like a standard message. But that to me, if I was you getting an invite from someone to an event, that would kind of make sense. I don't require a lot of fancy words round about it. I kind of get it. It makes sense. But if someone was to send me a standard message going, hello, Russell, would you like to buy my bathtubs? I'm going, there's no context. There's no, you know, it's not as though, hi, Russell, I saw your article about bathtubs. I thought you might like to buy one. There's nothing there. And I think as humans, we immediately clash with that, with I don't understand. And we don't like the sensation of I don't understand. And I think that's a bit where it goes wrong. And it's not so much the cutting and pasting or all this kind of stuff. It's more about the fact that, why have you done this? I don't understand. And there's an interesting piece as well, just about LinkedIn, but about all digital media. So sometimes someone will come back to me and say, I don't want this. This is irrelevant. Why are you sending this to me? And I just immediately apologize and move on. I don't carry any of this with me.
Right, I'm going to wrap up here, yeah, Russell, yeah, because I'm just conscious of the time. It's 1/2 or just gone past the hour. And look, the reason we're holding this session is we're running an event in the next 2 weeks. Russell and I are doing a one-off thing. At the moment, it's one-off anyway, yeah, where we're going to do an advanced LinkedIn course that walks through how to use Navigator. It walks through how to use LinkedIn in an advanced way. It walks through how to build up networks, how to optimize LinkedIn. And really, this is sort of just a bit of an insight into that and what we would be doing and how we would be doing it. So there is a little bit of a pitch here, and I apologize for that. Yeah, right. You know, we're charging £125 for the course, but we'll give you a 50% discount if anybody's interested in it. But I think it'll be really, really interesting. I think it'll be a really fascinating session where the idea is to practically build out models for using LinkedIn in an advanced fashion. So it's not about just looking at your profile or sending a message, but it's about sitting down and saying, how do you want to use it? How are you going to use it? How can we help you physically do that? So there's breakout rooms, there's activities, we are, as a business, we're an outcome-based model. So we're not so much interested in the content, we're interested in the change that you have after completing a course like this. And Russell and I both felt that we both come at LinkedIn from very, very different directions. that combining our knowledge together and giving people access to that in a series of sessions would be useful. So, so what we'll do is
just on that course, just very quickly. So the key thing for me about the course is we've built a methodology up about the way that we both use this. Fraser from the sales perspective, me from the people side, and brought it together into a step-by-step. This is how you make it work for you, which I think I think that's what we all want. But what we really, Fraser did an amazing thing during the height of COVID, where he ran a training course. I know you were on it, Dave, with about 180 people or something, where shared what could be achieved. And the transformation in a number of people, I think you were there as well, Alan, has just been incredible to see. There's some LinkedIn posts about the results that have been achieved by doing that. And this is a transformational process. Thank you, Fraser.
It was great. It was a really good course. It just changed the way that I use LinkedIn.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing, right? It is a one-off. Yeah, I mean, the intention, I don't know if the intention is more, but it's not the plan at the moment. So you're all welcome to come along. What I'll do is I'll get Catherine to bounce you a quick email here, right? You know, and just give you the link to it. And if you're interested, we'll put a 50% discount code there, and you can all join you, right? You know, and if you know, it'd be good to have everyone there. Right? It's a bit of an experiment for us because it's a mishmash of learning, of practical application, and sharing best practice. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be different from what we've done before. So. I've not done a collaborative course with anyone before, right? So, you know, personally, Russell. So it's and
just to point out, non-Scots are invited as well. We've got to get away from this. Everything's this one accent. We're going to go like we're open to everyone coming.
Aye, smashing it. And yeah, so like we'd love to see you. It starts on Wednesday, and I hope today was helpful. Like, get you to think about things anyway, right? You know, so. I think it's always good to talk about these things, yeah. So, and I got to interview you, Russell. I'm so happy with that, right? Woohoo!
Take care now.
Okay, see you guys later. Thank you.
Thanks
cheers. Thank you.
Okay, cheers. Bye-bye.